That's right. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Halper. This is The Upside of Work. I'm your host and the CEO of The Upside. We're a community where top independent consultants, advisors, and industry experts join forces to advance their businesses together. And I have with me an Upside member, per usual. Nate, thank you so much for being with us today. I am beyond excited for your story. I know a lot about your story, but there's a lot I don't know. And I've been enjoying all of your LinkedIn content so much. It is just like I get excited every time your name pops into my feed. So thank you for agreeing to be on the upside of work and talk about your journey, talk about your business, and inspire everyone who's listening today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to hear that the posts are exciting because I often feel like I'm just posting out into a void. So whenever I get feedback that folks are excited about it or reading it, it's really nice to hear.
Well, I don't know how you could feel that way when you literally have like thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, but okay, so you're one of those people who got the 99 on the test and you're like, "Oh, I didn't
Or
get
just
the
that the
100."
internet's a place of I don't know. It can feel hard to have the connection. So that's all.
I understand. I understand. Well, thank you for being here. And now, of course, I know what you do, but for everyone watching who doesn't know what you do for work, who doesn't know what Revel Impact is, can you just tell us about what your business is today, what Revel Impact does, and anything you want to tell us about the work you do, who you work with, what you do?
Yeah. So I'm an inclusivity expert. I help organizations create workplaces where businesses and people thrive. I primarily do that through strategic advising, speaking engagements, workshops, trainings. Um, I called my company Rebel Impact because I think there's joy in this work. A lot of times, inclusivity work can feel like a burden, but it's really exciting and joyful because we're making people feel good and we're helping businesses do better.
Yeah, tell me more about because I think it's important, like how your work helps the business as a whole. Because a lot of your content, a lot of what you put out there is so focused on inclusivity
Mhm.
through your personal lens, which is so unique and so interesting, and it's why I love your content so much. But how does that affect the whole business versus just maybe the few people in an organization who would categorize themselves as marginalized?
Yeah, I mean, it might sound overly simple, but businesses are made up of people, and clients are people. So the businesses that, like, who businesses are serving are people, and people are complicated, right? People have multiple identities, right? That's what we're talking about today. So if businesses aren't thinking about who their people are and who their clients are, then they're not going to be successful. And we have, I know we're going to be talking about this a little later, but if we're not thinking about who we all at the same time, I don't get to choose which of my identities show up at any one given time. So that's just how we all operate in the world, right? So I know we'll talk about it a little later, but businesses are made up of people and people are complicated and we all have our different identities. So if we're only serving one specific sliver, we're not serving the whole organization.
Why has this been overlooked for so long?
Uh, it's a good question. I think part of it is because we don't think about the people aspect, right? We don't think about how our businesses operate, who our folks are, and I think identity for a long time has just been seen as just not a central focus, right? We think about the product that we're putting out into the world. We think about if it's a mission driven organization, we're thinking about the mission, but we're not thinking about the specific people.
And how does your work affect all the people in an organization who wouldn't consider themselves in a marginalized category? Because I know you talk a lot about marginalized categories, but I think there's a lot of people who would look at their organization and go, okay, that's like four people. Like that, like I'm not gonna like bring in an expensive expert to help me like be inclusive with like the few random people that this applies to. How does your work affect the company as a whole and those that aren't marginalized?
Yeah, so we all have identities, right? We all have all different kinds of identities. Some of our identities can be seen, some of them can't be seen. Our identities connect us with others, and that can be beautiful. As you mentioned, some of our identities have been the basis for discrimination, but we all have them, and we don't get to choose which identities we have. So, I identify as queer, I'm trans, I'm autistic, I'm Jewish, I'm white, but I'm also a dog lover. I love baseball, I love poetry, and this is all who I am. So it's who I am at work, it's who I am outside of work, it's who I am as a consumer. And again, we all have these different things. So for example, if I'm trying to buy tickets to a ball game and the owner of that team has said something transphobic, I'm going to think twice about buying tickets to that game now. Or if I'm at a queer event and somebody says something anti-Semitic, I'm going to think twice about my place within this event and probably not come back. So who we are really affects how we show up at work, but also when we're buying things, when really in all aspects of who we are. And we all have these different identities. Even if we haven't had to think about them, we have them.
Sarah Beth is saying the identity economy is here. I love that. I've never heard that. Thank you, Sarah Beth, for that. I've never heard that hashtag before, but I am now going to be obsessed with it because I think that is so. I've never heard those two words attached, and I think it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and there's not small numbers, right? It's something like 1 in 5 Gen Zers identify as LGBTQ. So if you're trying to reach Gen Z and you're not thinking about LGBTQ identities and inclusion, you're going to miss out on Gen Z. Or for disabilities, 61 million Americans identify as disabled. And so if you're not thinking about disability inclusion, you're missing out on, I think it's like a quarter of the potential workforce. These are very large numbers, just because it's about people, right? So it's about who we are and how we identify, and we all have any sort of identity we can think about, even though we think about identity most often as race, religion, gender, sexuality. Our identities are much more expansive than that.
Well, you know that I am obsessed with your work. I am so inspired by your work. Really excited about the future of the work. But how did you get to this point? Okay, so like, how did you? And I mean, it seems so easy the way you talk about it, but I know it just didn't happen overnight. So, how did you get to the point where you decided to start Revel Impact and focus on this type of work?
Yeah, you're right that it's never easy, and decisions are never easy, and it's always a journey. So no matter where we are, there's always a journey to get there. So I was in the social impact space for over a decade, and even when I was in the social impact world at these organizations that were supposed to be really focused on their impact, I was still having these experiences that weren't aligning with the values that these organizations were putting out into the world. So I was still having bosses text me at 2 a.m. I was still involved in projects that were mismanaged. I was, there wasn't enough training around bias, right? So I was having all of these experiences at these organizations that didn't quite align with what was going on. And at each of these organizations, the leadership wasn't identifying the root causes of the challenges. They weren't thinking about the processes or the structures or the policies that they needed to put in place. It was most often seen as the individual failures of individual employees. And that creates a super unhealthy culture. It creates a feeling of like lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, and just feels really bad. So I always knew that there was a better way to work, especially if I was seeing this in the social impact sphere. So it was always something in my mind that I had wanted to think about better ways for us to work and better ways for us to like conduct ourselves in the workplace. And then there was a specific instance that really was like the pivotal moment for me to go off. And I was sitting in a meeting. I disagreed with something that one of the senior leaders had said. He expressed that disagreement in a really hostile, aggressive tone toward me. And I just realized I never wanted to feel that way again. I didn't want to feel that way at work. I don't want anyone else to feel that way at work. Even though it wasn't the first time that happened to me, I went to Barnard, and being a trans person at an all-women's college was not easy. At all of the organizations I've been at, I've always had to do the gender workshops to make sure that people knew how to use my pronouns, a lot of the work that I've done is very personal because I'm trying to create a space for myself to exist. But in that moment, I was like, this is the turning point. I cannot keep doing this to myself. And I imagine that I am not the only one who has been in this situation. So that was the launching point to start the business. And then I took your accelerator, and here we are.
And you joined the community.
And I joined the
So
community.
you took a chance. And I was joking with Nate before in our warm up session right before we went live about how I can remember them going, oh, I don't know, should I join? Should I not join? Is this inclusive enough? And it's like always so hard to describe what goes on inside. And I'm just so grateful that you took a chance.
Yeah, and I think that's also a really important point for other organizations to think about as well, right? Because even though the upside isn't necessarily emphasized, like I know that you say that everyone's welcome, but it's not necessarily an emphasis on inclusion in particular. But you and the upside team, you're folks who are thinking, who have that desire, right? And you have the intention. And I think for many organizations, it's about having the intention and maybe not necessarily knowing exactly what to do. And that's a lot of what I come in to do. So if you have the intention behind it and you know that your organization could be doing better in whatever way, whether it's like it could be productivity or product management or the way that folks are interacting with one another, as long as the intention is there, you can become a more inclusive organization.
And not to be like all capitalist here, but let's face it, it just results in more customers. This is what people want. This is what customers today want. I am Gen X. Not sure if you know that about me, but I am. I am on the tail end, but I am Gen X, and the next generations, they're just not tolerating anything but this.
Right. Right. I think that's a great point. I think they're not tolerating it. And then I would also say, so it's for like, attracting top talent. It's about keeping your top talent. But it's also really just, again, I know it sounds really simple, but when like businesses are made up of people, and when people are thriving, your business is thriving, and that's just it. So even if you're thinking about a better way, even if you're only thinking about your bottom line, when your people feel good about showing up, they're going to do their best work. And it sounds very simple because it is. It is simple. When people feel good and they feel like they are part of an organization, they understand what they can contribute, they have the supports they need, they have the resources they need. I know that we talk about belonging a lot in the space that I'm in, but I don't necessarily need to feel like I belong. I just need to feel supported. I just need to know what's going on, and I just need to know exactly how to do my job and do it well, and feel like I have the space to do that.
Yeah, work is not one size fits all, right? And even as someone, I had my first child 11 years ago, almost to the day, 11 years ago. And even as a straight white woman who things are easier for me, right? Just being a mother was a whole big to do. Like that was like, I did not feel like the work world was designed. I was like, whoa, this is a big wake up call. Like this is not awesome.
Right.
So I think this applies to anybody who feels any type of marginalization in any way, shape, or form. This work is so important. It's not a trend. It is the reality that should have always been. But it just makes me very excited. So let's talk about being a multi-identity boss, because I know there are people watching this saying, I am a multi-identity individual. I am not just one-dimensional. I mean, that can mean a million different things, but they're looking at you saying, wow, what a dream to be able to do this type of work, make this type of impact. I mean, isn't that what we all want, to have work that makes an impact, that has a real purpose, not be a cog in the wheel? For people who are watching this saying, I want to be a multi-identity boss, I want to start my own thing. What advice do you have for them being a multi-identity individual, and how to get past that fear of showing up as your authentic self and stepping into who you are to be the best boss you can be?
Yeah, it is a great question. And before I answer it, I just want to talk about just something that you mentioned about marginalized identities, and just to emphasize that inclusion helps us all. So I often think about like gender neutral restrooms, and that helps me as a trans person have access to a gender neutral restroom, but it also helps a father who needs to take his daughter to the bathroom. So when we're thinking about this work, it really is encompassing of everyone, because we all have our identities and we all have different needs. And when we're thinking about how to include the most marginalized, we're actually making it better for everyone. So even if folks don't necessarily think about themselves in this way, it really does help every single person in your workplace, every single client you might be serving. It's really for us all.
It really is. And like, look, even as a mother of sons, and my sons are not babies anymore, and there have been many times when I needed to go into the bathroom with them,
Right.
or for whatever reason, and we call them the family bathroom. You say gender
Yeah.
neutral, we call them family bathrooms in
Well,
our
whatever
world.
it is, right? I have many a time used the family bathroom, so they're helpful for everyone, right? So it's right. It goes the opposite way too. Even when it's focused on families, it helps us all. Yes. So your question about being a
Yes.
multi-identity boss and what that means. Um, so I know that I've mentioned a few times that we all hold all of these different identities, and when I've mentioned a few of my own, but when we're thinking about this, it's both how we're defining ourselves and it's also how the world is defining us. So we're thinking about the ways that we can navigate the world successfully. And we're thinking about how our different identities are showing up. I'm the same person I am here as I am at work, as I am outside. So there's no real way to think about how one aspect of my identity is going to show up. So it's always important to understand that we're full humans showing up in different ways, and thinking about how to have a business that like makes an impact. Every business is going to make an impact. So no matter where you are or what industry you're in, you can make an impact. If you're in marketing, you can think about how to create campaigns that are representative of the communities that you want to speak to. You can make sure you have closed captioning. You can make sure that you have alt text on your photos. If you're an event producer, you can make sure that you've got ASL interpreters. You can make sure that your venue is accessible. No matter where you are, you can make sure that your business is making that impact. And I would say that even if you're not thinking about it, your business is still going to make an impact. So you can either choose to think about how your business is going to make an impact positively. And if you're not thinking about it, your business is probably just going to continue some of the inequities that we see and only serve a sliver of the population. So no matter what, your business is going to make this impact.
We lost you for just a second, but that's okay. I think we got the gist of it. We got a little bit of a frozen thing, but it was on a good face, not a weird face. So that was, it was not one of those, it was a good face. Don't worry. One last thing. Well, actually I have two last things, but one second to last thing. Rapid fire, lightning round, like just the best piece of advice or the first step someone should take. Let's do that. The first step someone should take who is hesitant to step into their full selves and start their own business. What first step should they take?
The first step I would say is believing that you're worth it. And I know that might sound, I don't know, a little
Cover girl, Maybelline?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's true, right? Like the right, exactly, cover girl. But I think that I really do think that, because the first step is saying I am somebody who either I have something to say, I have a better way to do this, I have expertise to give the world. In my case, it was saying I deserve better than to feel belittled at work. I deserve better than to feel like an outsider. I deserve better. I deserve a space where I know that I can be successful, because I wasn't giving, if I could only be half of myself, that means the organization I was at was also only getting half of me. And that wasn't serving me. It wasn't serving the organization. So I really do think the very first step is really and truly understanding that for whatever the spark is in you, you deserve to follow that spark. You deserve to feel great about what you do, and you deserve to feel like you can contribute to something greater than yourself.
That's amazing. Well, now we are officially at the end. What's something we can't tell about you just by looking at your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah. So I was trying to think about this question because I knew that you were going to ask it, because it's a great question that is often asked. And I am very open on my LinkedIn, because I think that personal storytelling really is the way that we can connect with one another. I think through personal stories, we can really share. And I think folks can really understand that these are not abstract concepts when we're talking about inclusion and when we're talking about multiple identities. These are really things that affect real live humans, and they affect how we're able to work. So I have lots of personal stories. You can tell a lot about me from my LinkedIn, and it's intentional. And I encourage everyone to do that as well. But something that you can tell, folks might know that I'm from Staten Island. I just recently did a post about that, but you might not be able to tell that I have a very thick Staten Island accent. So we could have talked like this the whole interview. Like I could have told you all about my mother. We could have had coffee, whatever we wanted to do. It could have been the whole thing. The accent gets thicker as I get back to Staten Island, but it did. I intentionally got rid of it when I got to school at college and realized that I could not have this accent and be taken seriously. But it is very much a part of me.
I resonate with that so much because I had a thick Southern accent, and I wasn't sure if people took me seriously or not, but I could not stand that every single time I met someone new, every time I opened my mouth, 100% of the time people would say, "Where are you from?" And it just became so predictable that it was like scratching on the same spot over and over again, and just like started like rubbing a hole. So yeah, I worked hard too, and once in a while it comes out, but not very often. So I resonate with that very much. um, and I hear you and I feel you. So for anyone who wants to get in touch with you, Nate, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn, I'm here. Just come and hang out. I'm trying to create a community over there. I think often we think of LinkedIn as the way that we are getting resources and jobs and all that, but I am actively trying to create conversations. Or my website, rebelimpact.com. Come say hi.
All right, rebelimpact.com. You can find Nate on LinkedIn. I highly recommend you follow them. Your content, Nate, has just lit me up. Like, it's just every time I read something that you write, it just inspires me so much. I look forward to reading what you write. There's a reason why LinkedIn chose you as one of their top creators. And it happened, by the way, everyone, it happened so fast. Literally, Nate went on LinkedIn, and like in a month, everybody in the upside was like, "What is your trick? What are you doing? Like, what is happening?" It was like 0 to 100, like immediately. So you just have a knack. You have a talent. There's no algorithm hacking or anything. It's just because you showed up as you.
Right.
You showed up as you. And that's really why you've done so well. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for giving people advice. Thank you for sharing your talents with all of us. And I will see you back in the Upside community.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.